I'm not sure. Your tea is ready. Hey everyone, I forgot to put everyone on mute. So I'm going around and just kind of clicking mute. If you notice that you are not on mute, if you could just kindly click mute. It's one of the features when I set up Zoom. And for some reason, sometimes it allows it, I don't know, sometimes it's there and sometimes I have to search for it. So, all right, I'm just gonna admit everyone. Welcome, welcome, come on in. I'm just gonna grab some oil. All right. Welcome, welcome. Grab some oils, put some oils on. I'm putting Melissa on. I don't know, this one came up on, I just did a Zyto for one of my team members and it came up on hers and I was like, ooh, I have this one on my, one second, on my shelf and I rarely use it. It's a really good one I'm thinking about tonight.
Wait, go lay down.
Yes, and if you are just joining us, if you could kindly just click the mute button, that would be great. Then there's no background noise going on. I'm sure you probably don't want to hear, you don't want us to hear conversations in the back of your house. Okay, we are going to get started. All right, so Amber, you are sharing, oh, there you go. Okay. You were sharing your screen.
Trying to see if I could share my screen and still see people, but I don't know if that's possible.
No, it usually just shows up like on a sidebar or a top bar.
Okay.
Yeah. So Amber's gonna share tonight. Amber Donnell is sharing with us tonight about listening to your inner voice, and I'll let you share what you do on a professional level, because I just know you work with behavior and emotions and helping folks in that arena, but I'm sure there's more of a technical definition. So welcome, Amber. And Amber, I'm gonna let you get started, introduce yourself. I'm so grateful for you sharing tonight. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, so my name is Amber. I am a mental health therapist, a licensed social worker. So I help people with their hard stuff. I'm also doing my own hard work in therapy, so I challenge everyone to do that, to consider it. I think that it's helpful for everyone. Everyone has stuff. So can you see my whole screen or just the center? Can you see the whole PowerPoint, Sarah? You're muted, I can't hear you.
There we go. Just the one slide that you're on, it says your inner voice.
Okay, you're good.
Yeah.
So if everyone could get a pen and paper or something to with, and go to as quiet of a space as possible. And then give yourself the mental space to dig deep and apply these topics to your life. I'm going to share a lot of information tonight. So it might be overwhelming. So if you have a pen and paper, then you can kind of pull out what really applies to you personally and go back through the PowerPoint later to dig a little bit deeper.
Ready?
So what do we mean by this idea of inner voice? We all have stuff, right? Like we all go through life, through childhood, through adulthood, go through life, things happen, hard things happen. And we gain these perceptions. Our personality develops as we go through life experience. We develop beliefs about ourselves. We develop our personal values, what's really important to us, what drives us. And that becomes our inner voice. Like sometimes our inner voice produces anxiety and it's not very comfortable. Sometimes it is a part of depression. It's a lot of different things. But we have power to kind of control that narrative within reason. We're going to talk about a little bit of that tonight, how you can do that. So emotional intelligence. I think I went too far, sorry. These are some of the topics that we're going to go over tonight. They're all mental health therapy topics. Cognitive behavioral therapy, this is all for educational purposes. It's not meant to replace therapy. Again, I said, I really encourage everyone to explore that option. Emotional intelligence, cognitive distortions, and then the personal bill of rights. So what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is the emotional version of your IQ. We all have an EQ, and if we can kind of grow that EQ, we can relieve stress, communicate with other people in our lives better, more effectively. We can empathize with other people and give them the idea that we can understand where they're coming from. Overcome challenges and diffuse conflicts much easier. How do you do that? Self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. That's the 4 overarching parts of emotional intelligence, but we're going to focus on the first 2 tonight, self-awareness and self-management. So emotional intelligence is a big part of it is your emotions. We have thousands of emotions that happen all the day, all the time, all throughout the day. Conflicting emotions that happen at the same time. So we might feel really angry and upset about something, but we're also really happy about it. So something that can be helpful is to put the word "and" in there whenever you're building your emotional intelligence and you're working on naming your emotions, allowing yourself the space to say, I feel frustrated and I feel joyful. Giving the space for conflicting emotions to happen at the same time. Not feeling like you have to put yourself into a box and just say, I'm really pissed off today, and that's how I am. Self-awareness is the precursor to self-management. So we talked a little bit about identifying your emotions, naming what they are. This is so helpful. This is something that I tell almost every single one of my clients. If you can even just write down your emotions throughout the day, just naming what they are, writing them down on paper, there's such power in that because it starts to build that mental capacity to name how you're feeling in the moment. So many times we have a lot of feelings happening, but we can't really unwrap it and dissect it and name exactly what's happening inside of us. But as you continue to write them down more frequently, that builds your vocabulary and then you can do it in real time. Emotions and your body. There's a very direct correlation to our emotions and our body. I think all of us here use oils, so we know that that connection is very real. Think about whenever you feel nervous about something, your stomach might start gurgling or feel like you have to poop your pants. There's definitely a direct correlation to the emotions that we feel and the body sensations. One of my favorite books is called The Whole Brain Child. And in that book, Dr. Dan Siegel talks about this idea of name it to tame it. So if you're feeling something, you're feeling really anxious, really upset about something, you can name how you're feeling to kind of like bring down the power from it, to take the edge off. It makes you feel more in control whenever you can name it. Again, writing down those emotions throughout your day, building your emotional intelligence, and then being able to name how you're feeling in real time tames that power behind the emotion. In that book specifically, they're referencing doing that with children, helping children to build their emotional intelligence by naming how they're feeling for them as they're going through something. So if your child falls down and scrapes their knee, saying, "You're feeling sad, that really hurt," like helping them to build the words for the emotions that they're feeling. But it's also valuable for us as adults. Do you know what your triggers are? What really pisses you off? It's so helpful to know your hot buttons, what evokes a lot of anger or emotion in you. This is one of mine whenever I'm doing the dishes and it's almost completely clean in the sink, and then someone just throws in that last little ugh. It sends a message to me, probably not the message that they're actually meaning to say, but we'll get to that idea in a little bit. So whenever someone pushes our hot buttons or our trigger points, sometimes we lash out an explosive emotion or we'll completely shut down. Sometimes whenever someone does that to me, I just stress clean. I just start shutting down and cleaning the whole house. But we all have our different go-tos whenever that happens. Knowing what yours are is really powerful. Part of developing your emotional intelligence is being self-aware so that you can manage these reactions and create new reactions. Self-soothing, creating systems that allow you space to have a different reaction whenever something happens. Self-awareness is your best tool. After we get hot wired like that, like whenever we kind of lash out in emotion or we completely shut down, it takes our brain a long time to return back to its normal function. So if you can create situations that prevent that from happening, or even just know what they are to anticipate it, you can really help yourself function better. This is a website where you can go to test your emotional intelligence. I'll try to find a way to share this with everyone at the end. I don't know if I can email it maybe, but you can go to this website and get an EQ, just like you can do a test for an IQ. And it just kind of tells you areas where you could focus your energy on trying to grow.
Amber, can I just butt in there real quick? That was, so some of the slides are a little bit larger. Most of them you can read, but can you just share the website? I'm seeing leadershipfoundation.com.
I'm only sharing a portion of my screen. Let me try something.
Okay.
Is that better?
Oh, yes, that's great. Perfect.
Put that, oops. If I click on it, it takes me there.
Okay, perfect. That's much better.
The person who developed this idea of emotional intelligence is Daniel Goleman, and there's a website at the bottom where you can go for more of that also. Anxiety is something really, really common that I think a lot of the world struggles with. I think we've all experienced it at some point or another. Some of us struggle with it on a daily basis. Sometimes it's really, really difficult, and sometimes it's on the lesser end of the spectrum. But regardless, anxiety can be adaptive. It is your body trying to protect you, but it can also be really uncomfortable and annoying. So when that alarm is going off, ask yourself why. Like, what is your brain trying to tell you? What is your brain trying to protect you from? Does it want you to stay away from harm? Is it trying to remind you that you need to do a thing? Or like digging down to the core of what your brain is trying to tell you. Ask yourself, is this for good reason? Like, is there anything that I have the power to do in this moment with this anxiety feeling? Can I do something to kind of like solve it? If not, then choosing to release it, giving yourself permission to just kind of let it go. I don't have the power to control this or do anything with it in this moment. And then following up with self-soothing. Self-soothing is something really basic that we all have the power to do. Some people consider like meditations as self-soothing, but I like to think of it as every little part of our day that feels really adaptive, like a hot shower or a warm cup of tea or comfy clothes, anything at all that feels just really good. That's self-soothing. And then you can give yourself those things in moments where you're feeling really anxious or you need to let it go, just pulling those tools and providing that for yourself. Oils are a really good one too. This is kind of fuzzy, but Brene Brown, she says unused creativity is not benign. It metastasizes, it turns into grief, rage, judgment, sorrow, and shame. So a lot of times we as adults think that kids are creative, coloring is for children. Creativity is something that children do, it's juvenile, but that's not true. A couple years ago when the adult coloring books came out, like it was all the rage because it was acceptable suddenly for adults to be coloring and it felt really good. But creativity is much larger than just coloring. It can be cooking, decorating, gardening, coloring, painting, houseplants. For men that like to work with their hands in the garage, like taking stuff apart, building stuff, that's creativity. Why don't you guys share in the chat what you like to do to be creative? Maybe you'll get an idea from someone else, something else that you want to try. Some of my favorites are definitely making stuff with my oils, like making household products, making new recipes and concoctions. I like to garden, baking yummy treats for desserts.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see the chat, Amber, but they are saying baking, sewing, DIY with oils, cooking, gardening, painting. All sounds wonderful. Baking, gardening, coloring with my daughter.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever we use creativity, our brain releases dopamine, which is a happy feel-good hormone chemical in our brain that really, it's self-soothing. It relieves stress. You can also process trauma by being creative, just that movement in your brain, neuroplasticity. That's like your brain changing. You can change your brain. Another thing that you can do to relieve anxiety is to really explore your core values. Dig deep into what you're really passionate about. A lot of times we are raised in families and told like these are our values as a family, but then we reach adulthood and we're kind of like, what do I really stand for? Digging into that, Googling even core values. There's a bunch on the next screen. These are just some ideas, but there's like thousands out there, tons and tons of different ideas for values. Going through and listing like your top 25 and then narrowing that down to even like a top 6 or 7 of your core values. And then going back and evaluating each area of your life and how you're living in congruence with your core values. So if we're not living in congruence with our core values, it produces a lot of anxiety. And sometimes like we can't name that. We feel the anxiety because we know subconsciously that we're not really like in the groove of where we want to be, but this can kind of help us unpack that. Cognitive distortions. So this is the part where if you have your pen and paper, we're going to go through a whole bunch of cognitive distortions, and it's really, really likely that at least 3 or 4 of them will stand out to you, and you'll be like, I do that with my brain. My brain does that all the time, all day, every day. These are things that I would be willing to say every single person in the population does at least one of them. So yeah, just as we go through here, if something stands out to you, just jot it down so that you can come back to it. Magnification and minimization. So exaggerating or minimizing the importance of events. One might believe their own achievements are unimportant, or that their mistakes are excessively important. So as you go throughout your day, you're kind of like minimizing things. I'm trying to think of a good example, but my brain's not thinking of one. Catastrophizing. Sometimes our brain only sees the worst possible outcome of a situation. Assuming the worst is going to happen. If you see one of these and you're like, my brain does that all the time, and you're comfortable being vulnerable, you can put it in the chat. Just kind of normalize that we all have them. Overgeneralization, making broad interpretations from a single or few events. Like if I felt awkward during my job interview, I'm always so awkward, just overgeneralizing, taking one little tiny snippet of time and making that like the truth for all of time. Magical thinking, the belief that acts will influence unrelated situations. So I'm a good person, bad things shouldn't happen to me. Personalization, the belief that one is responsible for events outside of their own control. My mom is always upset. She would be fine if I just did more to help her. Jumping to conclusions, interpreting the meaning of a situation with little or no evidence. Mind reading, interpreting the thoughts and beliefs of others without adequate evidence. Assuming that you know what other people are thinking, specifically about you usually. She would not go on a date with me, she probably thinks I'm ugly. Assuming that you know that that's already true. The expectation, fortune telling, the expectation that a situation will turn out badly without adequate evidence. Remember, these are distortions, they're not true. Emotional reasoning, the assumption that emotions reflect the way things really are. I feel like a bad friend, therefore I must be a really bad friend, or I feel like I did a bad job, so I must be a terrible person. Disqualifying the positive, recognizing only the negative aspects of a situation while ignoring the positive. So if I receive a bunch of compliments on an evaluation, but focus on only that one single piece of negative feedback, not counting the positive. Should statements, the belief that things should be a certain way. I should always be friendly. I should do this. I think shame goes along with this hardcore. Should and shame should be BFFs. They just, yeah, it just puts you into that shame category. All or nothing thinking. This is a really common one. Thinking in absolutes such as always, never, or every. Never do a good job on anything. Sometimes it could be like a task, like I'm all in or I'm not in at all. If I'm not all in, then it doesn't matter. So if you are able to name what yours are, what do you do with that information? If you can identify, kind of like we talked about the emotions, being able to name your emotions in real time as you're feeling them. If you can identify in real time whenever you're doing these cognitive distortions, first you know your go-tos, and then you can name when it's happening. then you gather the evidence to prove it wrong. Because there is evidence, it's a distortion, it's not true. That challenges that belief. And then as you do that more and more, your neuroplasticity, your brain can create new channels, new beliefs, new awareness, and you can fight back against that. Just reading some of the comments. Catastrophize. Yes, Angela, especially as a mother. I do this all day, every day. It's really hard to fight back against. Someone told me once that your amygdala, the worry center of your brain, actually grows when you have a baby. And it makes perfect sense. Apparently my husband's did not grow because he thinks that I'm crazy for everything I worry about. Catastrophizing, maximizing and minimizing. A should thinking person. The next thing is the personal bill of rights. This also is something that I share with every single one of my clients. It's a list of a bunch of rights that every single person on the earth has as a human. We all have them. A lot of times we believe them to be true for other people that we interact with in our life, but we don't necessarily embody them for ourselves. So as we go through here, recognizing which ones really stick out to you that you don't necessarily apply to yourself, you don't allow to be true for yourself. And then we'll talk about it after, but you can use those as positive affirmations, almost retraining your brain to call yourself out in real time, again, whenever you're doing it. I do this now from, I guess, sharing it with other people so much, like I know what mine are, but when I do something, I can say the statement to prove it wrong. I have the right to ask for what I want, the right to say no to requests for demands that I cannot meet. You can share in the chat if anything stands out to you also. I have a right to express all of my feelings, good and bad. Sometimes we just try to keep it upbeat, which is nice to be around upbeat people, but we have a basic human right to be able to express positive and negative feelings. I have a right to change my mind. I have a right to make mistakes and not have to be perfect. I have a right to follow my own values and beliefs. I can say no to anything if I feel that I'm not ready, it's unsafe, or it conflicts with my values. I have the right to determine my own priorities, to not be responsible for the actions, feelings, or behaviors of others, to expect honesty from other people, to be angry at someone that I love, to be myself, to be unique. I have the right to express fear, to say that I don't know, the right to not give excuses or reasons for my behavior, to make decisions based on my feelings. This one creates a lot of pushback. A lot of people say, well, I don't want to make decisions based on my feelings. If you don't want to do that, that's fine, but you have a basic human right to be able to make decisions based on your feelings. If you're feeling scared, you have a right to not do the thing. I have a right to my own personal space and time, except if you're a parent. Just kidding. A right to be playful, a right to be healthier than those around me. Sometimes we feel guilty if we are working on ourselves and the people around us aren't doing the same. A right to feel safe and be in a non-abusive environment. To make friends and be comfortable around people. To change and grow. I have a right to have my wants and needs respected by other people. I have the right to be treated with dignity and respect, and the right to be happy. So noticing which ones of those, again, don't necessarily feel true for you. You don't necessarily embody them completely for yourself. And then using them as positive affirmations, reading them every day, almost memorizing them until your brain starts feeding them to you in real time. Behavior activation. So depression and anxiety, two things that you can do to kind of combat against them. The first one is to time the activity. So like if I put off doing a thing, like the dishes feel overwhelming to me, I'm just sitting on the couch, so comfortable, and that giant pile of dishes in the sink feels totally overwhelming. Next time you do the dishes, set a timer to see actually how long it takes the dishes to be completely gone out of the sink. That way, next time when you're sitting on the couch and feeling like that feels too big to do the thing, you can say to yourself, it took me 5 minutes to do the dishes and then they were done and I felt really good. Because your brain makes it so much bigger than it is sometimes. Another one is to say, I can't do this big thing that is on my to-do list, but what's something small that I can do? Like I don't feel like I have the energy or the umph to go shopping, grocery shopping today. I just don't feel like I can, speaking from a depression standpoint, like that physically makes it difficult to do things. But I can do one thing, I can get a shower. That's something, it's behavior activation. It's taking one little step to kind of one foot in front of the other in the direction that you want to go. It's like, that feels too big, but this is something small that I can do. It's a lot of times the little thing that you can do is one of those acts of self-love, like the hot shower, the warm cup of tea, something that's self-soothing. This is a weekly schedule that can help with behavior activation. Putting little tiny tidbits of things, positive experiences into your daily routine, writing them out, having it on this kind of like checklist almost. When it feels too difficult to do big, giant tasks, this kind of helps you get the momentum going with those small, simple goals, working your way up to more challenging activities. This is my contact information. If anyone has any questions. It's really difficult for me to talk to a screen and not hear any feedback from you guys. So if you have any questions or anything, please put it in the chat or unmute. Feel free to talk. Comments, anything.
Thank you, Amber. And I introduced you as Amber Donnell because that's just, I'm just so used to Amber Donnell, but it is Amber Gregorio. So sorry about that.
It's totally fine. It's still my middle name.
Okay, is it? Did you keep your maiden name as your middle name?
I can't hear you.
My speaker has been working. Can you hear me there?
Yes.
No. Okay, my speaker is kind of off. So you kept your maiden name as your middle name.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's see. Is there any questions? Not right now. Well, you have Amber's contact information. Please don't hear me. You have Amber's contact information. So thank you all for joining tonight. And Amber, if you can you put those in the Facebook event, those slides?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And maybe even in our group, that way we can have them because they were really, really good, super helpful, especially the Bill of Rights and even some of like the cognitive distortions, to go back through them again. That would be really helpful.
Sure, I can do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. And I appreciate Amber being here tonight. And next Monday night is actually the last Monday of March. Can you believe it? Where is this month going? So next Monday night, Sarah Paul is going to be talking about our thought process around business. And so next Monday night is our brand partner Monday. So I hope you all can join. That'll be out in our, actually that link is in our Facebook group. So you can hop on over there and pre-register for that event. So see you next week, guys. Good night.